Have you ever found yourself in a situation that just feels impossible? I mean, maybe you're facing this huge challenge at work or grappling with something personal that feels, well, it feels like trying to warm up in a literal ice bath.
Yeah, that's a powerful image.
Right. And in those moments, it really makes you wonder, how much control do we really have over our own experience? Can our thoughts actually change how our body feels, even when you're shivering uncontrollably? Like, can we really think our way through something like a freezing cold ice bath?
It's a really compelling question, isn't it? And what's fascinating here is that while the mind doesn't have, 100% power,
Right.
it definitely has significant measurable control. It really does.
Okay.
So this deep dive, we're going to explore the captivating science of that mind-body connection. We'll unpack how your inner world, your thoughts and feelings, profoundly influence your outer reality.
And we're using insights from leading brain experts, right? Giving everyone listening a kind of shortcut.
It's exactly a shortcut to understanding how your thoughts and emotions dynamically influence your physical well-being. And through this, we're going to introduce a really powerful, limitless model designed to unlock personal transformation.
Okay, so that's our mission today. Unraveling this complex dialogue between brain and body, exploring concrete strategies for, optimizing human potential,
Hmm.
and shedding light on those key neurochemicals that drive everything from motivation to recovery. Sounds like we've got a lot to cover.
We do. It should be fascinating. Get ready for some surprising facts and hopefully some really practical takeaways.
All right, let's dive in. So, we've all heard that phrase, fake it till you make it. People say it for everything, building confidence, shaking off a bad mood.
It's very common advice.
But when it comes to genuinely shifting how we feel, emotionally or physically, is it really that simple? Can you honestly just smile your way out of, say, deep depression? I've certainly tried. Well, it's not a quick fix. Not at all.
You're absolutely right. It's far more nuanced than that. The older narrative, maybe even just a decade ago, often suggested that, change your expression, change your state.
Right.
But if it were that straightforward, we'd probably see a lot less depression than we do today.
Good point.
Now, it is true that changing your physiology, like your posture, say, deliberately standing taller,
Mm.
opening up, that can be an initial nudge. First step, maybe.
Okay, a nudge.
But it's not a complete solution on its own.
Yeah.
The core concept here is what we could call the brain and body contract. They aren't separate things. They're constantly in this dynamic dialogue.
Like interlocking gears.
Exactly like interlocking gears. One turns the other. And for the whole system to really thrive, they need to, well, dance together.
So it's not mind over matter or body over mind. It's more like a conversation.
A continuous, fluid conversation.
Exactly.
Our subjective narrative, that personal story we tell ourselves about who we are and what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
that profoundly impacts our body's physiology. And vice versa, right? Our physical state influences the story we tell.
Can you give an example of that dance?
Sure, think about it. When someone feels depressed or anxious, what happens to their posture? Often, they kind of involuntarily close off, right? Shoulders slump, maybe arms crossed.
Yeah, I can picture that.
Conversely, when we feel genuinely good, confident, our bodies naturally open up, shoulders relax, breathing gets deeper. So while forcing yourself into an open posture can trigger a subtle shift inside, it doesn't instantly rewire your entire emotional landscape. It's like an initial push, yeah, but the real lasting shift needs that deeper dialogue where mind and body are constantly informing each other.
That makes so much more sense. It's integrated, not just surface level. All
Okay,
right.
but what about the thoughts themselves? My mind sometimes feels like a runaway train. Thoughts just pop in. How do we even begin to manage that?
That's a really critical point. Thoughts do happen spontaneously. All the time. They just surface. Kind of like like a poorly filtered internet connection popping up.
Huh. Yeah, that feels accurate. They're often products of our past, our current sensations, how we're reading our environment. But then there are deliberate thoughts we consciously choose to introduce.
Like deciding to think about writing my name.
Exactly. Right now, you could consciously decide to visualize writing your name, and you can do it. That's a deliberate thought, an act of conscious will.
So the real game isn't stopping the spontaneous thoughts because that feels impossible.
Right.
But it's about consciously, consistently introducing the deliberate ones.
Precisely. In popular psychology, there's this idea, it's well-intentioned, but I think potentially dangerous, that your body hears every thought you have.
I've heard versions of that.
It emphasizes responsibility. It's good, but it puts this immense, almost paralyzing burden on people. Trying to actively suppress negative thoughts, it's largely ineffective. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Just pops back up, maybe even harder.
Exactly. They tend to just geyser up with even more force. The key isn't suppression. It's the power of introducing positive, constructive thought patterns. See, the mind can really only hold one dominant thought at a time, even though they shift incredibly quickly,
One thought at a time.
which means you have to be constantly intentional, deliberate about where you place your focus. Because if you don't, a spontaneous thought, often a negative or limiting one, will just pop right back in and take that space.
Wow, that's a huge challenge. I mean, I wrestle with that daily. It's so easy for the mind to wander off track. And for you listening, think about it. How often do your spontaneous thoughts just hijack your attention from what you want to focus on? It takes real mental energy, doesn't it, to stay intentional?
It absolutely does. And that very energy, that drive you're talking about, it deeply connected to our neurochemistry. Let's dive into dopamine.
Okay, dopamine. The reward molecule, right.
Right.
Winning a game, closing a deal, getting likes on social media.
That's how most people think of it, yeah. But a really crucial insight from neuroscience is that dopamine's primary role is actually more about motivation and pursuit.
Motivation and pursuit. So not just the reward at the end, but the fuel for the journey itself. That changes things.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly. The vast majority of dopamine release actually happens when we are en route to our goals, when we're actively pursuing something, and crucially, we believe we're on the right path.
Okay. That explains something.
What's that?
Why some people feel a bit deflated, almost depressed after achieving a huge goal. They expected this massive high, but maybe the peak was actually during the chase.
Precisely. The peak dopamine was often during the intense effort leading up to it. Now, high achievers, the ones who sustain success, they often intuitively learn to attach dopamine to the effort process itself,
To the daily grind.
to the daily tasks, yeah. The incremental growth, the learning, even the setbacks and lessons learned. Think about Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset.
Fantastic work.
It's built on two core ideas. First, believing you can eventually get there, that you're capable. And second, crucially, attaching a real sense of reward to the effort itself, not just the final result.
Rewarding the effort.
Dweck had this amazing anecdote from her studies with kids. Some kids genuinely loved doing math problems they knew they couldn't get right.
Really? Why?
They felt a reward from the sheer effort of trying, of engaging with the challenge. And guess what? Those same kids often became exceptional at math later on when there was a right answer. They learned to love the process.
That completely reframes how we should approach challenges. Focus on rewarding the trying, not just the succeeding. But if dopamine is tied to our subjective take on things, can we actually will ourselves to feel more motivated, even when we're tired or discouraged?
Remarkably, yes. Dopamine release is very subjectively controlled. We can literally learn to trigger it in our own brains based purely on how we interpret reality.
Yeah.
Okay, take someone who's maybe struggling financially, trying to build a new business, stuff, right? If they can consciously take a few moments each day to genuinely reflect on how the effort they're putting in is moving them forward, even slightly, or confirming they're on the right track, two powerful things happen.
Okay.
First, the brain circuits involved in creating those subjective rewards, they get stronger. You get better at it over time. And second, and this is profound, dopamine has this amazing ability to buffer adrenaline and epinephrine.
Buffer adrenaline. Wait, so it can counteract that feeling of stress and exhaustion from pushing hard. How does that work?
It's incredibly powerful. There was a key study, I think it was in Cell, showing that with repeated effort, our brains release more and more epinephrine. It's basically the brain's version of adrenaline.
Okay.
Every bit of effort sending that tough email, working on that complex project, pushing through a workout, you're metaphorically spending a bit of epinephrine.
Right, like draining a battery.
Exactly. And at a certain point, those levels get high enough that you just feel like quitting. You feel drained mentally and physically. This was shown really clearly in studies where people were exerting physical effort. If they thought they were making progress, they kept going. But if they were tricked into thinking their efforts were futile, that they weren't moving forward, their epinephrine spiked and they quit much faster. Dopamine pushes back against that rising epinephrine. It gives you that subjective feeling that you can keep going, that you even want to.
Wow. Like the Super Bowl example you mentioned.
Perfect example. Think about the winning team versus the losing team right after the game. Both teams are utterly exhausted, physically spent.
Absolutely.
The losing team collapses. Done. The winning team, Suddenly they have this explosion of energy, enough to celebrate for days, right? That's not
Mm.
just leftover muscle fuel. That's largely neural. It's a massive dopamine surge, flooding their system, overriding the fatigue, giving them that feeling of boundless energy for celebration.
So the bottom line is, we need dopamine to keep going, to push through the hard stuff. But how do we get more of this jet fuel without turning to, dangerous external things?
The fundamental key is practice. Consistently practicing the subjective release of dopamine in your own mind. Conscious intention is everything here.
Okay.
Now, I have to be really clear. There are addictive drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, that cause a massive unnatural dopamine flood.
Right. Very dangerous.
Extremely. The huge problem is they overwhelm the system so much that the drug itself becomes the only goal, the only path that feels rewarding. It lowers your baseline capacity for natural reward, making everything else feel kind of flat or meaningless.
Destroys the natural system.
It hijacks it. Our neurochemical systems, dopamine, adrenaline, they weren't designed specifically for modern goals like building a huge company or even avoiding a tiger,
Yeah.
particularly.
For more
Well,
generic
designed for adaptation.
adaptation, like basic survival.
Exactly. Think of an animal foraging. It feels hunger agitation. Then it catches the scent of food boom, dopamine release. Energy, focus to pursue the hunt. If it's a false trail, another signal quickly suppresses dopamine so the animal doesn't waste energy repeating that mistake.
So dopamine helps us learn what works and what doesn't.
Critically, it triggers neuroplasticity, marking actions that led to success for repetition and those that led to failure for avoidance. It's a built-in guidance system, keeping us oriented towards what helps us adapt and survive.
That really grounds it. It's about training our brain to find reward in the process, the effort, even the struggle. But okay, if dopamine is the go-go-go molecule driving us forward, what about rest? We can't be on all the time. That sounds like burnout waiting to happen.
You're absolutely right, and that is precisely where serotonin comes in.
Ah, serotonin.
Serotonin is a very different kind of reward. It's released more in relaxed states. It's the neurochemical that helps reset the whole system.
Reset.
It's closely linked to feelings of gratitude, deep restorative sleep, meditative states. It's connected to that subjective feeling that we have enough resources right now.
Enough, like feeling satisfied.
Exactly, like truly savoring a good meal with friends or the comfort and safety of holding a loved one. While dopamine is pushing us outward, chasing external goals. Serotonin is about feeling content with what's here in our immediate environment, a sense of completeness, wholeness, safety.
Okay, so if dopamine is the accelerator, the fuel for pursuit, serotonin sounds like the brake, the recharge station, that internal sigh of, okay, I'm good.
That's a great way to put it. The recharge, the contentment, is an absolutely essential balance. Unless that serotonin box gets checked off periodically, we simply can't sustain that dopamine-driven pursuit for long without serious consequences.
Right.
We see it all the time, right? High achievers burning out, people reaching huge success but feeling isolated and depressed. They neglected the serotonin side. This is why, across so many cultures and religions, you have concepts like a Sabbath, a dedicated rest day, periods of withdrawal and reflection.
Makes sense.
Same in sports. You have pre-season, the intense season, and then the crucial off-season. You can't stay in season for 10 years straight. You'd break down. You need that off-season, that bye week for recovery and system reset.
Okay, this is a big one for you listening. Take a moment and think about this. What stands out to you about how these two chemicals, dopamine, the driver, serotonin, the restorer, are playing out in your life right now? Are you always pushing, always chasing? Or do you make real intentional space for rest, for gratitude, for just feeling enough right here, right now? It's a vital balance.
And understanding these powerful neurochemical drivers leads us right into what we call the limitless model.
The limitless model.
And this isn't just about learning faster, though that's part of it. It's really a comprehensive, actionable framework for accessing your full potential as a human being.
Accessing our potential.
Yeah, because so often we find ourselves limited not really by our actual capability or intelligence, but by our way of thinking. We build these invisible walls, put ourselves in a box.
A mental box. I know that feeling.
Right. And this box is often maintained by three powerful forces. Imagine a Venn diagram, three overlapping circles. These are what we call the 3 M's.
The 3 M's keeping us stuck. Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break them down. What's the first M?
The first M is mindset. Your mindset is, well, it's your core set of assumptions, your fundamental attitudes about life, and maybe most importantly, what you truly believe is possible for you.
What you believe is possible.
Yeah. What you believe you're capable of achieving and what you believe deep down you deserve. It's like your internal thermostat for success and well-being.
The thermostat. Okay.
If your mindset constantly tells you, oh, I'm not smart enough for that, or I'm too old to learn this, then even if you have the best methods in the world, you're already setting a limit.
Right. You've capped yourself before you even start.
Exactly. We identified what we call the 7 lies of learning, or LIES, limited ideas entertained.
LIES clever.
Things like, I'm stupid, I'm not creative, public speaking terrifies me, I'm too old. These become really powerful, self-imposed boundaries. So the conscious process of dismantling these limiting beliefs, that's what we call unlimiting, actively redrawing the borders of what you believe is possible for yourself.
Unlimiting. I like that. Actively breaking down those internal barriers. Okay, so mindset is M1. What's the second M?
The second M is motivation. Now, you could have the most amazing, expansive mindset, believe anything is possible, but if you lack motivation, you're still stuck in that box, right? You won't take action.
True. Mindset isn't enough on its own.
And motivation here isn't just superficial hype, rah-rah energy that fades. It's your deep drive, your purpose, your vitality. The real evidence of motivation is action. Something is actually happening. If you're consistently not taking action, then, well, you're not truly motivated no matter what you tell yourself.
Okay, so how do we get sustainable motivation? Not just that temporary burst.
We found a really simple but powerful formula for sustainable motivation, PXEXS3.
P times E times S cubed. Okay, let's unpack that. What's the P?
P is for purpose. You know the saying, reasons reap results. You need a compelling emotional why behind what you're doing. It can't just be intellectual. You have to feel it.
Feel the why.
I remember working with a student whose mother was very ill, given just months to live. This student's purpose saving her mother was so incredibly powerful, so emotional.
Wow.
She dove in, read maybe 30 books in 30 days on health and wellness, and ultimately she played a huge role in saving her mother's life. When your why is that strong, that visceral, you don't need external hype. It comes from within. A good question to ask yourself is, who's counting on you? Who benefits if you succeed? Tapping into that emotional purpose is key.
That's an incredible story. Purpose is powerful.
Okay, what about the E in PXEXS3?
E is for energy. Even with the strongest purpose, if you lack the basic physical and mental energy, motivation just fizzles out. Makes sense. You can't run on empty.
Exactly. You might have all the reasons to start working out or learn a new skill, but if you're trying to do it late at night, running on fumes after eating junk food, it's almost impossible, right?
Yeah, the couch wins every time.
Your brain and body need fuel to function well. So we talk about brain energy enhancers, certain foods, and absolutely critical, optimizing your sleep. Your thinking, focus, memory, decision-making, they all plummet without good sleep.
So purpose is the why. Energy is the capacity to act. What about S3? What's that?
S3 stands for Small Simple Steps. This tackles that paralyzing feeling when a goal seems too huge, too overwhelming.
Oh yeah, the where do I even start feeling.
Exactly. Starting a business, getting perfectly healthy, mastering a language, it can feel so massive that your brain just freezes. The confused mind does nothing. So the magic question here is, what is the smallest possible action I could take right now where I literally cannot fail?
Smallest action. Like what?
Okay, say you want to read a book a week. Don't start by trying to read for an hour. Commit to reading one sentence.
One sentence.
Yeah, almost nobody stops at just one sentence. Or, for flossing, just floss one tooth. You'll probably do more.
Huh. Okay, I see the logic.
It taps into something called the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, our minds don't like unfinished tasks, open loops. Once you start something, even tiny, your brain wants to close that loop, making you more likely to continue. Its smart energy management, clarity, and purpose give you energy, and small steps require minimal energy to start, beating procrastination.
Okay, so mindset, unlimit yourself, motivation, PXEXS3, purpose, energy, small, simple steps. That brings us to the third M. What keeps us from getting stuck even if we have the first two?
The third M is methods. Even with the best mindset and motivation, if you're using the wrong strategies, the wrong techniques, you'll stay stuck, maybe even get really frustrated.
Using the wrong tools for the job.
Exactly. Think about how we're often taught to learn, especially in school. Lots of rote repetition, passive consumption.
Right, just reading or listen.
The crucial insight here is that the human brain doesn't really learn effectively through just consumption. It learns through creation, through active engagement, application, doing something with the information.
Learning through creation, that's a big shift. Can you give an example of an old method that holds us back?
Sure, a classic one is how we read, specifically something called subvocalization.
Subvocalization.
Yeah,
The little voice in my head reading along.
that's the one. That inner voice, while it feels natural, actually limits your reading speed to your talking speed, maybe 200 to 250 words per minute. But your brain can process information much faster than you speak.
Hmm.
When you train yourself to read faster, say beyond 400 words per minute, you start to bypass that subvocalization. You don't need to mentally say every word to understand it, just like you instantly get a stop sign without saying stop.
So that inner voice is actually a speed bump.
It can be, yeah. Another inefficient habit is regression, unconsciously jumping back and rereading words or sentences you just read.
Oh, I definitely do that.
A lot of people do. Studies suggest it can waste up to 25% of your reading time. A really simple but effective hack is using a visual pacer, like your finger or a pen, to guide your eyes smoothly across the text.
Just following your finger.
Yeah. It increases speed and drastically reduces that backward jumping, forcing your eyes forward. It might feel awkward at first, but it makes a huge difference in efficiency and even comprehension for many people.
Wow. Unlearning a bad habit to unlock speed. Okay, but beyond old learning methods, it feels like modern technology has brought its own set of challenges, right? Things constantly pulling at our attention.
Absolutely. Technology is amazing, offers incredible benefits, but it has also inadvertently created what I call the four digital supervillains that actively hold us back.
Digital supervillains. Okay, I need to know these. What's the first one?
Villain number one is digital deluge. It's just the sheer overwhelm of information coming at us constantly. Trying to process it all feels like
No.
trying to drink from a fire hose.
Totally. Information overload is real.
It leads to what's now called information fatigue syndrome. Higher blood pressure, less leisure time, sleep problems. In business, teams can spend hours every day just processing information. If you could save just 1 hour a day, maybe through better reading or filtering skills, that's 365 hours a year. That's like getting almost 2 extra months of productivity back into your life. The cost of not managing this deluge is massive.
2 months. That's staggering. Okay, so digital deluge is villain one. What's number two?
Number two is digital distraction. Every single ring, ping, notification, app alert, it's actively training our distraction muscles. We're getting really, really good at being distracted.
Sadly true. What's the antidote?
One really powerful habit: try not touching your phone for the first hour of your day.
The first hour. Wow.
It seems small, but it helps rewire your brain away from being constantly reactive towards being more proactive and focused. My friend Brendan Burchard has a great line: your inbox is nothing but a convenient organizational system for other people's agenda for your life.
Ooh, that hits home.
The solution is training focus, becoming a thermostat that sets your own mental temperature,
Yeah.
not a thermometer that just reacts to everything around it.
Thermostat, not thermometer. Got it. Okay, villain three.
Villain number three is digital dementia. This is our growing reliance on devices as external memory. We used to know phone numbers, right?
Hmm.
Now, many struggle to remember even their own sometimes.
Guilty.
And while maybe we don't need to memorize hundreds of numbers, the concern is we're losing the ability to remember conversations, basic facts, commitments. Think about how damaging "I forgot" can be.
Yeah, it erodes trust, credibility.
Exactly. Memory is fundamentally a muscle temper. Use it or lose it. So the antidote is active memory training. I heard a story about a woman who, after taking a mental fitness course, suddenly remembered where she'd put a lost family heirloom necklace 3 years earlier. Her recall just got sharper.
Wow, so you can literally train your memory back. Okay, what's the fourth and final digital supervillain?
Number four is digital deduction. This is where technology starts doing the thinking for us. It's not just misinformation, it's how algorithms feed us curated content, making us less inclined to think critically, analyze, or reason deeply for ourselves.
We just passively accept what's served up.
Increasingly, yes.
Ah.
And it's even impacting kids' problem-solving skills. The solution is active training in clear thinking, decision-making, looking at problems from multiple angles, not just taking the first answer provided.
So the big picture here is we need to be really conscious and active in fighting back against these digital forces, right? It's not just about learning new things, but about protecting and strengthening our core mental abilities: focus, memory, critical thinking.
Precisely. If we want to unlock our potential, we have to reclaim those fundamental capacities that are being subtly eroded. And that idea, reclaiming our mental power, leads us right into the incredible potential of conscious transformation. At the heart of this is neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to change itself, right?
Exactly. So the brain's inherent lifelong capacity to reorganize its connections, even create new ones based on experience. And the really exciting part, it happens throughout your entire life. But
Correct.
after about age 25, it becomes largely self-directed. Change doesn't just happen to you passively anymore. You have to actively, intentionally engage in the process of shaping your own brain.
Self-directed neuroplasticity. Okay. So how do we actively trigger that change? What's the process?
It's really a fascinating two-part process. First, there's the trigger. In adults, this usually involves focused attention and often a state of, well, heightened agitation.
Agitation, like frustration.
Yeah, that mental strain, maybe even frustration you feel when you're really pushing yourself, learning something hard, stepping outside your comfort zone. That struggle actually signals to your brain, pay attention, this is important, we need to adapt here. The brain wants to conserve energy, so that agitation marks something as crucial for change.
Okay, so the struggle is actually the signal for growth. What's the
So,
second part?
the second, equally vital part is integration. This is when the actual rewiring happens. Connections strengthen, become more efficient, maybe even new neurons are born. And this critical integration phase happens during states of deep relaxation.
Deep relaxation, like sleep.
Deep sleep, especially slow-wave sleep, is huge for integration. Also, certain meditative practices, like yoga nidra, are incredibly effective.
That makes so much sense. It reminds me of going to basketball camp as a kid. I'd struggle so much with the footwork drills, feel totally clumsy and frustrated.
The agitation phase.
Right. But then the next morning, after sleeping on it, the moves would just be there. Like my brain figured it out overnight.
That's a perfect real-world example. That's neuroplasticity in action. You triggered it with focused, effortful strain, and your brain integrated it during rest. It also highlights something else important:
What's that?
the power of a playful attitude in learning. Physicist Richard Feynman was famous for being playful in his work.
Right.
Play allows intense focus, but keeps things light enough for optimal dopamine release, making learning more effective and less stressful. And also the power of community, of teamwork. Think about high-performing teams like Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
The shared responsibility, the mutual support, it buffers individual stress massively, which allows for better learning and faster integration under pressure.
So push yourself, yes, but also allow for rest. Maybe don't take it too seriously and lean on your community.
Okay, but how does this connect to deeper emotional transformation,
Yeah.
beyond just learning a skill?
For that deeper, lasting change, you need clear intention, plus, crucially, an elevated emotion. You have to consciously change your energy state.
Change your energy state.
How? Well, think about how most people operate. They spend their lives waiting for something outside themselves. The right job, the perfect partner, more money to finally make them feel good, to take away the emptiness or pain.
Waiting for the external fix? Right. But if you're constantly living in a state of lack, or separation, or waiting, you're actually generating thoughts and emotions that create more of that reality. The key teaching here is learning to condition your body emotionally before the external evidence shows up.
Condition your body emotionally before. Wow, that's flipping the script entirely. Moving from cause and effect to causing an effect yourself. So if I want to feel abundant, I need to feel abundant now, even if my bank account says otherwise.
Precisely. The very moment you start to genuinely feel whole, feel deeply grateful for what you have and what's coming, your healing, whether it's physical or emotional, can begin right then. The moment you start feeling truly worthy, truly abundant, regardless of circumstances, you're energetically drawing that reality towards you.
Because the brain is, what did you say, a record of the past.
Exactly. Your brain is largely an artifact of everything you've learned, experienced, felt up to now. So to consciously create a different future, you have to stop constantly retelling the story of your past, reliving those old emotions. Instead, you start diligently telling the story of your future.
How?
By consistently thinking about, and more importantly, feeling those desired future states, joy, gratitude, health, abundance, until your brain literally, physically changes, until it neurologically looks like the event you desire has already happened. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's actively creating a new neurological and chemical reality inside you that matches the future you want.
That requires incredible mental discipline overriding those old habits. And you mentioned the heart is involved too. How does the heart play a role in this?
True transformation, especially deep healing, needs both a coherent brain and a coherent heart. If your heart is incoherent, maybe from holding on to resentment, frustration, impatience, it actually disrupts trust within your own system and blocks the effective flow of energy.
An incoherent heart. Okay, so how do we make it coherent?
We've worked a lot with places like the HeartMath Institute on this. We teach specific practices. It's actually quite simple but powerful. You get still, bring your attention to your heart area, slow down your breathing deliberately, which helps shift your brain waves, and then you consciously open your heart to feel elevated emotions, gratitude, appreciation, care.
So gratitude, again, it's not just a nice idea then. It actually does something physiologically.
Absolutely. Gratitude isn't woo-woo, it's science. It's proven to boost serotonin, contributing to happiness and well-being. But more than that, when your heart becomes coherent, orderly, its electromagnetic field acts like an amplifier.
An amplifier.
Yeah, it drives more coherent energy up to the brain, leading to what we call supercoherence between the brain and heart. We've even seen measurable physical changes. The heart literally swells slightly. Beneficial chemicals like nitric oxide and oxytocin get released. When your heart is open and coherent, you're broadcasting this powerful, orderly, energetic signal that carries the information of your intentions, your desired future, out into the world and aligns your internal state.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. The idea that our internal state creates these measurable physical and energetic shifts. But does it really work? Is there hard evidence beyond the theory?
Oh, absolutely. We have remarkable scientific evidence now, plus countless compelling stories from our work. For instance, studies where people simply practiced trading fear for gratitude just 10 minutes, 3 times a day, for 4 days.
Just 4 days.
Just 4 days. We saw a 50% increase in immunoglobulin A. That's a key part of your immune system's frontline defense against bacteria and viruses.
50% in 4 days. Wow.
We've also measured significant changes in gene expression in just 4 days. Genes that suppress cancer and tumors get activated. Genes that stimulate stem cells for repair get turned on. Genes related to oxidative balance, think anti-aging, anti-inflammatory effects improve. And even genes for neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells.
This is incredible. Changing our genes through feeling.
And it gets better. 60 days of consistent meditation 5 days a week has been shown to lengthen telomeres.
Telomeres, those are linked to aging, right?
Directly linked to cellular aging and longevity. Longer telomeres, generally longer, healthier life. Plus, our brain scans during moments of deep transcendental experience show energy levels hundreds of times outside of normal. Conventional science is still trying to figure that out.
Hundreds of times normal. Okay, those are staggering results. But what about those almost miraculous healing stories you hear about? Things that seem to defy standard medical understanding?
We have witnessed truly profound things at our events, often documented. There was a woman, blind from birth, only about 5% vision. After one intensive event, she started seeing. Medical scans later confirmed a reversal of an optic nerve stroke she'd had a year before, something usually considered irreversible very quickly.
Unbelievable.
We've seen deaf people begin to hear, people with spinal cord injuries get out of wheelchairs, Parkinson's symptoms resolve rapidly, tumors disappear, and what's fascinating, often, the people who experience these healings don't just focus on the physical cure. They talk about how amazing they feel, reborn, refreshed, a new lease on life. It points to a much deeper holistic transformation happening.
That shift in focus from the problem to the feeling of wholeness, that's powerful. And seeing that must have a huge impact on others, right? It must change what people believe is possible for themselves.
Absolutely. When you witness breakthroughs like that, it fosters this powerful collective belief. Hey, if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Yeah.
It creates this collective consciousness where possibilities just expand for everyone there. We use science as the contemporary language of mysticism, you could say.
Science as a language of mysticism. I like that.
It helps demystify these incredible human capacities, makes them understandable, accessible, actionable. It shows there's a formula, a process people can learn and apply.
So ultimately, it really boils down to choice, doesn't it? You mentioned that phrase, life is the C between the B and the D. What does that really mean for us?
It means that between birth B and death D, the critical variable is C choice. Your entire life, right up to this moment, is the sum total of your choices. And every single moment, including right now, offers a new choice that can change everything.
A new choice every moment.
So the encouragement is this. Don't downgrade your dreams to fit your current reality. Don't shrink yourself. Instead, upgrade your mindset, elevate your motivation, refine your methods to meet your destiny. Step into the life you're truly capable of living.
Upgrade yourself, not downgrade your dreams.
And that absolutely requires acquiring new skills, building a comprehensive tool belt that makes you resilient, bulletproof against life's curveballs, economic downturns, breakups, health issues. It takes courage, and it definitely requires learning how to learn effectively meta-learning.
And when we're learning or facing any tough challenge, you said not all steps are equal, some are harder.
Exactly. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, yes, but some steps are uphill battles, right?
Hmm.
The key is to consciously reward the harder steps, not just coast on the easy ones.
Reward the hard steps.
How? When you are right in the middle of that struggle, that strain, when the adrenaline is pumping and part of you wants to quit, that's the moment to consciously tell yourself, this is the good part. This is where the change happens. That subjective reframing releases dopamine, buffers the stress chemicals, and helps solidify that new neural pathway, making it easier next time. Find the reward in the push, in the discomfort, because that's truly where growth occurs.
Okay, so taking all this incredible information, what does it mean day to day? It's clearly not about being on 100% of the time, just relentless dopamine-fueled pursuit. It's about building intentional recovery habits, right? Daily practices for both effort and rest.
That's exactly it. To really thrive, you need that intelligent alternation. Deep rest followed by focused effort, rewarding effort with rest. Two daily practices in particular have proven incredibly powerful and are backed by solid science.
Okay, what are they?
First, yoga nidra. It literally means yoga sleep. You just lie down comfortably, listen to a guided script, do a gentle body scan, focus on your breath, no real movement involved.
Yoga sleep. Sounds relaxing.
It induces profound relaxation, yes, but it also helps recover lost sleep, improves alertness during the day, and actively trains your nervous system to quiet that constant mental chatter, a huge barrier to rest for many. Studies even show just 30 minutes can help reset dopamine levels in the basal ganglia, physically preparing you for optimal action later.
Wow, so it's actively resetting brain chemistry, not just chilling out. Okay, what's the second key practice?
The second is gratitude. We've touched on it, but it's worth repeating. While it might sound cliché sometimes, the science is robust. It consistently boosts serotonin, contributing to happiness and resilience.
And it's not about being complacent.
Not at all. It's a physiological and psychological reset that actually allows for more sustained and effective pursuit later. It's not weakness, it's strategic recovery. Even elite special operations teams incorporate gratitude practices now. They know it buffers stress, improves cohesion, restores balance.
That's compelling. Any other general practices?
Yeah, the basics are still crucial. Getting sunlight in the morning helps regulate your circadian rhythm. Regular exercise, obviously. And deeply valuing and nurturing your relationships. That social connection is huge for serotonin and overall well-being. The core logic is clear. Better living through chemistry still requires better living. Meaning behavior, nutrition, maybe smart supplements, those come first. They are the foundation. Prescription drugs might have a place sometimes, but sustainable well-being and peak performance always come back to changing your behavior and lifestyle.
Right. It's about integrating these small, consistent, intentional practices, building that personal toolkit. Okay, so once we have this knowledge, how do we make sure we actually use it, turn it into real power in our lives, not just interesting ideas?
That brings us to a fundamental truth about how our minds work. Thinking, essentially, is the process of asking and answering questions. And your dominant questions, the ones you ask yourself most often, maybe unconsciously, they literally shape your reality.
Dominant questions shape reality. How?
Well, think about it. If someone's dominant internal question is always, how do I get people to like me? What happens? Their whole personality, their choices, might revolve around people-pleasing, fearing judgment, constantly adapting to others.
Yeah, I can see that. It becomes their filter.
Exactly. Your brain has this filtering system, the reticular activating system, the RAS. It has to filter out billions of bits of information every second to stop you from being overwhelmed. What gets through? What you focus on? Largely determined by the questions you're asking, implicitly or explicitly.
Like the pug dog example you gave.
Exactly. I started asking why pug dogs, and suddenly pugs were everywhere. They were always there, but my RAS wasn't letting them into my conscious awareness until the question primed it. So to turn knowledge into power, you need to actively ask 3 essential questions about everything you learn, including everything we've talked about today.
Okay, the 3 essential questions for turning knowledge into power, lay them on us.
Question 1. How can I use this? Don't just passively listen. Actively ask yourself, how can I apply this specific idea in my life, in my work, my health, my relationships? A practical tip. When taking notes, divide the page. Left side for information capture, right side for note-making. Jotting down how you'll use it, your ideas, action steps. It shifts you immediately from passive to active.
Okay, makes it instantly actionable. What's question 2?
Question 2. Why must I use this? This connects it back to purpose, to emotion. The P from our motivation formula. Why is this important to you? If you don't have that compelling emotional why, you likely won't follow through consistently. You need to feel the reasons. Reasons reap results.
Connect to the feeling, the purpose.
That it.
Okay.
And the third, critical question.
Question 3, when will I use this? This is the accountability piece. If it's not scheduled, it probably won't happen, right? We schedule meetings, appointments, but do we schedule time for that new habit, for meditation, for focused work, for applying what we learned? Put it in your calendar. If it's not scheduled, it's just a wish. How can I use this? Why must I use this? When will I use this? Okay, for you listening, that's the challenge. Apply these 3 questions right now to what we've discussed. When will you use this insight? Because that's how knowledge stops being just information and truly becomes transformative power in your life. That's how you unlock that potential. Hashtag tag tag outro me.
So if we just take a step back and reflect on everything we've unpacked today, this really deep connection between our brain and body, the way our neurochemistry works, this structured path to unlimiting ourselves, it brings up a really important, maybe challenging personal question.
Okay.
What is the one limiting belief, or maybe that old story you keep telling yourself?
Yeah.
What's the one thing you are now willing to courageously challenge? Knowing what you now know about the incredible power of your own internal narrative, your own capacity for change?
That's a powerful question to sit with. So, what does this all truly mean for your life, for everyone listening? When you genuinely grasp these principles, and more importantly, start applying them, it stops being just about healing from the past or getting through that metaphorical ice bath. It becomes about proactively building a life that feels genuinely magical, a life driven by your conscious choices, not dictated by old circumstances or limiting stories. The real question is, what magic are you ready to create in your own limitless life?